Good evening. Welcome to your City Commission study session. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during the meeting. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 7 p.m. and midnight and available for viewing on YouTube and Facebook Live. First item on the agenda is the speed study, 4th Street from Eisenhower to Metropolitan.
This will be Brian Faust, our Director of Public Works, for this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. This evening, we're requesting that the Commission consider having a speed study conducted along 4th Street between Eisenhower and Metropolitan. Currently, the posted speed limit varies from 45 to 35 to 30 to 20 and back up to 30 again. Based on staff's observation of traffic along 4th, the posted speed limits may not fit the actual conditions, and we do recommend that a speed study be conducted. In your packet this evening, we did provide a handout from the FHWA on basics of speed limits, which does provide a quick overview of why speed limits are set as they are. Speed limits posted incorrectly are often ignored by the public and can create an increase in crashes if posted too high or too low. The study that we'd be doing is at 6 locations. What we're proposing along 4th Street, basically at each point where the speed limit changes. So when it goes from 40 in Lansing to 45 in Leavenworth, and then to 35, again to 30, and then back up to 30. So all the way along the road. There's actually a picture in your handout that kind of shows where we propose doing the study. When we do a study, what's done is a 24-hour traffic count of all traffic in all directions, along with a speed study at that time to calculate the speeds that all the drivers are traveling. Once the study is concluded and the data analyzed, we would receive a technical report that describes the procedures that they use, their findings and recommendations for changes, if there would be any. Basically, as a result of the study, what we're looking for is the 85th percentile, and that's a term you've probably heard before. That's where 85% of the drivers travel at or below a speed. Traffic engineers use that 85th percentile a lot because most drivers actually do choose to drive at a reasonably safe rate. And so this evening we're just asking for you guys to consider if we could go ahead and do a speed study on 4th.
So does that mean that if everybody goes 60 miles an hour, then we'll change it all to 60? I mean, I'm being facetious here, but
Right.
People drive so fast
Right.
everywhere.
Again, they said basically 85% actually do a pretty good job. I mean, they look at the width of the road. When you're down around just north of Eisenhower, you have 5 lanes with a center turn lane.
Sure.
And people feel more comfortable, though there are a lot of businesses in that area. But when you get north of Spruce, the road really narrows. It's a 4-lane road, and by the county building just south of the 3 Mile, there's a little jog in the road as you're coming, so you're coming from northbound and then southbound traffic, which is a little bit of a jog, and when you meet a semi right there, it's very uncomfortable. Is 30 miles an hour appropriate for that? Maybe that area should be 20. So those are the types of things that we'd be looking at.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
A couple other notes that may hit your question before you get to it. We are looking at the reconstruction of 4th Street through the downtown, and as part of that, we are going to look at specifically some more speeds in that area, but this gives us a richer understanding of the entire corridor. Cost, this is well under the city manager's authorization, so it's not being brought to you because it's we're looking in the range of about $6,500, which as far as these things go is very reasonable.
Sure.
But with it being such a prominent area on 4th Street, we thought we'd want to bring it to the commission to get a little bit of feedback. And then finally, Mr. Faust noticed this when he got here that, hey, there's a lot of change on this street. Is it right? The change can be misleading. It can be tough for them to gauge. And he did work with Chief Kitchens, and they talked about the different speeds at the different areas. How did speed enforcement, how was it affected by the changing speed limits? Did they think that there was something that needed to be looked at? And you may think, well, why can't you just change it to 35 in this area? It doesn't really work that way. You need to look at it as a corridor and how traffic flows, what kind of businesses, road widths that you have in different areas. because the change that you make really will affect the traffic safety and flow through the community.
Well, that area where it changes from 45 back to 40 in Lansing, that's always been a catch,
Goes from 50 to 40.
50 to 40. Anyway, it's always been a place where people get caught.
Yeah.
You know, in the track there in
Where
Lansing.
they really get caught is when it goes from 65 to 50.
Yes.
Yes.
That's when they lay in wait. Yeah, my question, I think you answered it, Mr. Kramer, is did a certain event or events precipitate this, or was it just observation? Just observation. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So this would be, of course, needed and a good foundation. So would we, okay, if we do then change the speeds, then once we redo 4th Street and even the intersection 4th and Eisenhower, we'll revisit this? Because then it might change a little bit?
We would bring the suggested changes from the study to before. We would not implement any changes before we brought
Okay.
them back to the commission.
Okay, thanks.
And when would the study begin? When are you thinking it would begin? How long would would the duration of the study be?
Actually, the study would take just basically a week to do the work, and we'd want to make sure we time it. It would be during the weekdays. We wouldn't want to do it when there's the surge from the forts. Actually, I'd like to do it while school is in session, so you have school bus and those types of activities. So probably this fall.
I was a little surprised that I was looking for the chief on this particular subject, but good that,
And then-
it's
yeah.
just something that you've come to our community fairly new and you observed this, so I think that's really very good.
That's
So,
great.
very good, so.
Yeah, and then if you waited until 4th Street started getting worked on, then, I mean, downtown, then you wouldn't be able to do
Right,
it
yes.
with a
Right.
good study. So this sounds like a good thing to do right now before all that starts. Yeah.
I had thought, and obviously I was incorrect, that 4th Street from the southern part, or northern part of Lansing, all the way to approximately Spruce was KDOT's responsibility on setting the speed limits, but obviously not. Even though it is a state highway, I thought they did it. That's interesting. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds good.
So will we be reviewing any other streets or just these streets? Because I have some streets in mind.
So Brian and I have had that conversation.
Yeah.
His previous position here was as the traffic engineer for the city of Topeka. And so he's very in tune to that. And there are different, I don't know that individual streets, I think you can go down a rabbit hole there, but he has some thoughts on residential streets, collector and
Correct.
arterial streets, and maybe looking at some right sizing or some best practices in those areas.
That's good.
But we have had those discussions.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's needed too. Yep. Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, the second item on the agenda is review the enterprise fleet management vehicle lease program.
This will be Taylor Tedder, the Assistant City Manager. Maybe his last agenda item with the city of Leavenworth,
Wow.
we'll see.
He'll be here next week.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. So today we have Brandon from Enterprise Fleet Management with us. But first, let me tell you a little bit about how this has come up and where we've been and where we're going. So city staff have actually been in contact with Enterprise for several years now, and they've had a lot of experience with public agencies in the area like Prairie Village, Olathe Public Schools, Leavenworth County, Lenexa are just a few that that are similar to our size. And essentially, our fleet has always been in a good position because we've been able to replace vehicles as they were needed over the years. And so right now, our fleet is in a good position. However, with the rising cost of police vehicles, which is through no fault of the police department, our annual allocation that used to be able to serve the entire city is only able to serve police cars. So essentially, we're trying to be creative, looking at other avenues of being able to keep a relatively new fleet and reduce our maintenance costs, fuel costs, and things of that nature, and then also give a sense of pride to the employees to be able to drive newer vehicles. So essentially, with the equity lease program, it's not a program like if you or I were going to go lease a vehicle from a dealership. It's completely different. The actual use of the vehicle, whether it's a wastewater truck or a public works truck, we're able to use them as intended and don't have to worry about wear and tear or things of that nature. And we're also able to do, I don't want to steal all of your thunder, but we're also able to include maintenance on the vehicles, so the garage would be able to focus on the trash trucks and other large vehicles that are specialty items. But financially, it makes a lot of sense from staff's perspective, but I'll let Brandon go ahead and go through your presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate y'all having me this evening. We've really enhanced our program over the last several years. We've grown from about 1,000 government clients across the country to about 1,600 government clients today. Once we started doing more police vehicles, that really got our foot in the door, but we've also had a philosophy shift in our program as well. So we'll kind of get into some of that here, but Taylor had mentioned some of the other municipalities in our office's territory. So out of the Kansas City office, we service the western third of Missouri and then all of Kansas. So these are just some of our partners here, DeSoto, Valley Center, a couple that very recently came on board as well. So our program is structured a little bit differently for each one of our municipalities based on what they need and they don't need. So, but essentially what we're trying to accomplish in a nutshell is we're trying to find the optimal time to replace every vehicle in your fleet. And traditionally, you'd drive a truck or a sedan or SUV off the lot, it's worth less than it was 10 minutes prior. At some point, whether it's a 15, 20, 25-year-old vehicle, it's not going to continue to lose much value because it's already lost most of its value to that point. At the same token, the longer you hold vehicles, the more you'll pay in fuel expenses, the opportunity cost of not shifting to a more fuel-efficient vehicle, and obviously maintenance expenses are going to go up over the course of time as well. So traditionally, this is about, several years in is what we found the effective vehicle life cycle to be, but in the government space, we'll get into here momentarily, we found that that circle actually shifts further up here, and we don't hold those vehicles as long. So what's happened in the market, obviously a lot of things have happened in the market over the last year and a half, but prior to 2020, prior to COVID hitting, the auto manufacturers were producing about 17 million vehicles a year. COVID hits, they stop producing vehicles, they start producing PPE and ventilators for a pretty good reason, right? So production stops, transportation of these vehicles aren't being delivered across the country, and our projections are showing that it's going to take another year and a half, 2 years before production gets back to where it was pre-COVID levels. That doesn't even take into consideration the massive void that's in the market for vehicles right now. So not only is it going to take a while just to get back to where we were, it's going to take even longer for that void to be backfilled and inventory supplies to get back to normal. So what does that mean to our clients? Well, prior to COVID, we were seeing a large spread in vehicles that are factory ordered versus vehicles that are acquired out of stock at local dealers. The reason you see a big spread in savings is because you get to spec them out and build the vehicles with the exact equipment that you want on them with nothing more and nothing less. So, as an example, XL trim levels, base work truck trim levels are really hard to come by right now. So if you can find one, it's probably going to have more bells and whistles on it than what you wanted prior. So if you've got originally a $40,000 truck, $10,000 government incentive, it would, generally speaking, cost you about $30,000 to acquire it. Now you're finding XLTs, Lariats, King Ranch, LTZ type of vehicles are the only ones left on dealer lots. So sure, you're still getting a $10,000 discount, but it's on a $50,000 truck. So as an example, that's what's happening in the market, and that's what's causing this this inflation that we're seeing this year specifically. And it's gonna take, again, a couple years for that to get back up to normal. So with our program, you literally get to spec them out, build them exactly how you want with the trim level. And so in this example, very common in the government space, 2021 Ford F-250, regular cab pickup truck with four-wheel drive. 5-year term, averaging about 10,000 miles a year. Again, $40,000 truck, approximately $10,000 government incentive. So the initial vehicle cost, you're still getting your same government buy, $30,400. Our equity lease, like Taylor said, is very different than your traditional dealership type of lease. So we know that it's gonna have some value at the end of, in this example, 5 years. So we don't have you pay the principal balance down to zero. We have you pay it down to reduced book value, in this example, $7,600. Got your monthly payments over the course of 5 years. Fast forward 5 years, we sell the truck for $20,300. What's very different about your traditional dealership lease and our equity lease is we're giving you, the city of Leavenworth, the difference between this sales price and the remaining principal balance on the truck. So this $12,700 in equity, that's not Enterprise's money. This is the city of Leavenworth's money. What you do with it, I don't care. You either throw it back in your budget or you dump it into the next truck, which is gonna then offset the cost, lower monthly payments for a 5 model year newer truck. You reset the maintenance cycle and you rinse, cycle, repeat. So you just start to live in a different world when it comes to, maintenance and downtime, and to your point, mechanics, highly specialized mechanics aren't working on half-ton, three-quarter-ton pickups. They're now working on track loaders and 3-ton dumps and things like that. So that's kind of the mechanism. But one of the questions I get a lot of times is, hey, what if we go 15,000 miles a year? Well, sure, maybe it comes back 75,000 miles at the end of the term instead of 50,000 miles. That may drop the resale price from $20,300 to $18,500, right? $18,500. So we're still giving you a large chunk of money back. You're also going to have some trucks that do 5,000 miles a year. So, it's going to sell for $22,000 as an example. So we're going to give you a larger chunk of equity coming back. So we meet with you several times a year to be able to push this data to you and figure out what's going on and where we at on payments, what's the market value, what's happening, all of the above. So then what's changed with our philosophy over the last few years is we've identified the optimal time to cycle some of the vehicles in your fleet is a lot shorter than 5 years. So traditionally, we're running everything out 5 years, and then we'll sell it, give you the equity back. Well, we've identified that in this example, if we're looking back a year, and now we've got a 2020 F-250 extended cab 4x4 truck. In 2019, the cost to acquire, being $36,000, state contract pricing $28,400. You turn around and sell a 1-year-old pickup with 10,000 miles on it for $34,500. You bought it for $28,400. So you literally sell it for more than what you bought it for without having to outlay a massive amount of cash times a lot of vehicles in your fleet. So you can see what happens to the resale price after 2 years, holds pretty well. But after 5 years, that resale price really drops. After 10 years, it really tanks. And so traditionally, before our partnerships had started, most of the municipalities we partnered with, buy out state contract, you drive it till it's unsafe or the wheels fall off, and you go buy a new vehicle and you do it that way, right? So we're essentially minimizing the amount of operating expenses that you're going to have because you're going to have a more fuel efficient vehicle every year, every couple years. You're also going to massively reduce your maintenance expenses, and we're also injecting equity coming back to you quickly. Now, we're not doing this on every vehicle that's in your fleet. F-550s with a flatbed, a chassis, a crane, F-350s with a flatbed, those types of things. We're not cycling those out. It doesn't make sense because of the upfitting. But we have the unique ability to short cycle some of your SUVs and some of your pickups to be able to maximize that equity that comes back to you. Another question I get a lot from a maintenance perspective, here in Leavenworth, we've got 9 shops that are already on our program, our maintenance program, Zeck Ford, Speedway, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Firestone, several others. But what makes our maintenance program go is our National Service Department. So we've got 250 ASE certified technicians. Their only job is to advise the Goodyears, the Firestones, the Ford, Chevy, Ram dealerships of the world of what exactly needs done on each repair. So if I take my minivan in for service, they may say, hey, Brandon, it's due for an oil change, tire rotation, an air filter, and a flux capacitor. And I would say, okay, no problem, let's do all of those things. Well, our National Service Department takes over and they're saying, hey, flux capacitor only exists in the movie Back to the Future. Nobody's time traveling here, so let's not do that. Air filter's not needed until 50,000 miles. It's only at 38,000. We just rotated the tires 5,000 miles ago, but go ahead and do the oil change. It's also because it crossed 36,000 mile threshold, it's now due for an AC service. So go ahead and add that on there too, to your ticket. So not only are we controlling the over-servicing of vehicles, but under-servicing as well. So we're making sure that everything is being done at the manufactured recommended intervals. And our clients saved $44 million in maintenance expenses alone last year on our program. So, you know, it may not make sense for vehicles, for all of the vehicles in your fleet to go on our maintenance program right away. That's okay. But what it does is it allows your mechanics, your highly specialized, highly trained mechanics to be able to work on, you know, like I said, the equipment that they need to be working on, not saving $5 on an oil change. You know, outsourcing that to your local shops certainly helps. So we've come a long way in our program over the last several years. I'd mentioned to Taylor that the last time I showed this to him, it had about half of the logos on there. So we've certainly added quite a few over the last several years since we began discussions. And yeah, I feel really good about our program, and I think it'd be a great benefit to the city as well. So yeah.
This was done, and this would be rolled out as a vehicle comes, so it'd be like almost like a pilot project. You'd be starting with 1 or 2 vehicles.
So I
as
can
they roll
explain
out.
a little bit.
Or do you
So,
switch over everything?
so essentially what we would do, we identify vehicles that would be able to be flipped well. So we'd identify vehicles in our current fleet that have good resale value. So this is the other thing that really excites me about this program is Enterprise has the connection to resale the vehicles through Manheim Auto Auction or other avenues. And currently we sell all of our vehicles on Purple Wave.
Yeah.
And so we would get a lot more money back from selling through Enterprise.
Okay.
So essentially we would identify a number of vehicles. It could be 15, it could be 30 to start with. And then we would order vehicles, and then they would be replaced when the order was fulfilled.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would take several months for, you know, you place an order today, vehicle's not actually gonna show up for, call it 6, 8, 10 months. It's gonna take a while, microchip shortage, phone shortage, rubber shortage, there's a lot going on right now. But we don't sell the existing vehicles until the new vehicles actually show up, so.
Well, as far as the budget goes, right now we have, these things come up really suddenly. We need a new truck, you know, and we've got, so this would make it a little easier to regulate the budget, wouldn't it? To
Yeah,
level it out as far as what to expect.
I think so too, and this was the Reader's Digest version of his presentation. He goes into dashboards of fleet maintenance of every single vehicle, status,
Okay.
type,
Okay.
right sizing, and we've met with every department, so what we would be able to do is just have a much better feel for our program. And, you know, as Taylor said, you sell all those vehicles at once. For the first couple years, you're almost budget neutral because the money that you get from those sales goes in to start paying your leases.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more question, and then I'll let others ask questions. The maintenance, where is it done?
So it's at those partner shops, so they could take it to
Oh,
one
they
of
take
those
it locally
9.
then?
Yeah, so
Okay.
like if it's a
Zach.
Ford, they could take
They
it
could
to
take it to
Zach
Zach.
Ford.
Got it.
Or
Okay.
I think they're called Main Street Dodge
Right.
down in Lansing, or the Firestone right around the corner.
Okay.
So all of these, where you see these little pins,
Nine
these are,
authorized shops.
Oh, yeah, that's all, okay. Got
Which
it,
we
sorry,
actually
I
do
didn't know
take
your-
vehicles to those places anyway. We go to Firestone for tires, and we
Sure.
go to the other two for warranty work,
Yeah.
so, it wouldn't be that much different, other than they'd get their oil changes there too. The other thing that's really ideal is that they provide a dedicated fleet management person that's constantly looking at the resale values, and so they'll say,
Okay.
hey, instead of getting out of this vehicle in 3 years, let's do it at the end of year one, you'll make X amount because
Depending
the
on the market.
resale's good.
Yeah,
And then they also will suggest a vehicle that will hold its value better. Instead of like a Chevy Impala, it might be a Chevy Traverse. And instead of an Explorer, it might be a Tahoe or something like that, where we would be able to maximize the resale. And Paul's completely right, that from looking at what it would cost without putting the equity into it, it probably would be close to what we're spending on police cars yearly currently to do this program for every vehicle.
okay.
Can you go back to that chart you had on paybacks, et cetera? Right there. So this Ford F-250 Super Cab, 36,127, and would we buy it for 28,400, or would you buy it?
yeah, so we would buy it for 28.4.
And you'd charge us monthly $500, whatever?
Yeah.
And is it divided by 60 plus 5% interest, or how do we determine what the monthly payment is on 28.4?
Yeah, so we won Sourcewell's bid for fleet management services a few years ago. They put it out for RFP, and there were a lot of competitors, and we won that RFP. And so the pricing follows Sourcewell's agreement, and it's the 3-year treasury bill plus 350 basis points.
Okay.
So,
And my question would be, why wouldn't we turn every vehicle over at 10,000 miles using that thing? It'd be foolish not to. You'd be paying us to, as I look at that, you'd be paying us to buy these cars.
yes.
So why would we even consider keeping a car more than 10,000 miles? And just turn them like this, bang, bang, bang. And each one we turn in, we make $6,100 using that example.
Sure. So to answer your question, police vehicles as an example, we don't want to do those every year.
Why not?
Because
If we can get that kind of return, I'd want to do it every year.
well, sure. Unfortunately, the auto manufacturers don't give the type of incentive for Interceptors and Tahoes and police-specific vehicles as they do pickup trucks and SUVs. So, and plus you got to consider, hey, we're also putting $10,000 worth of
Yeah, right, I
aftermarket
understand
equipment.
that.
And
Yeah,
so,
okay.
so that's why we're not doing it on every vehicle, but a lot of the vehicles, we are absolutely doing that. The
How
city
many vehicles would fall into this program, Mr. Titter, approximately?
60-ish,
Yeah.
I think there were.
Yeah.
And
60.
how many trucks, probably, the public works, any idea on how many?
He has the list that I provided him, so.
Yeah.
The thing with why wouldn't we sell them, or why wouldn't we do this right now? We don't have access to the sales network to sell them.
Oh,
Because
so
we-
they're not guaranteed, you just use this as an example, you're not guaranteed, you take it to the auto auction and sell these things, is that correct?
Some of the vehicles we take to auction, most of the vehicles, the leased vehicles are wholesaled directly back to dealers. So when you cut out the auto auction, that's returning a greater percentage of equity to you because you don't have to pay auction fees, you don't have to pay that kind of thing. So the reason we're as successful as we are when it comes to resale is because we've got 19,000 different buyers across the country. So as an example, we have a 2-wheel drive truck drop off in Iowa, we may move that vehicle south. We have a 4-wheel drive truck drop off in Texas or Louisiana, we may move that north to bring additional resale. So we've got a massive network of franchise, non-franchise dealers that we work with to hold, and auctions that we sell.
What vehicles do you use for police vehicles?
Well, Ellis County, most recently, I partnered with them and Sheriff Brown out there. They decided to go with Tahoes because of the resale. Because
That's an SUV?
Yes, sir.
They're
Yeah.
all.
Instead of Chargers, which is a sedan, and the Ford
We're not using
Interceptor.
those anymore either, because they're just too small there.
all year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once you consider the resale on the back end and as well as the Tahoes hold their value, that's why we recommended the Tahoes, and that's what they decided to go with. So when they had traditionally done Durangos and Explorers and Chargers, they're pivoting and going with Tahoes because of that resale value and,
Well,
back end.
to me, if I was in public, all the areas in the city, most of it's in public works probably, that have the, use the pickup trucks, I'd be turning those babies over back to you in no more than 15,000 miles if I get that kind of return. 'Cause
And that's what we're doing.
I'm getting free money.
Absolutely. And
If
there.
that in fact is true, somehow it doesn't, it just, you know,
It
it doesn't,
so,
it
so,
doesn't look right to me.
hey,
It's illustrative.
that's exactly why I put this on here too. One of the objections that I frequently get, it sounds too good to be true.
Yeah.
And I showed what actual pricing, you know, to Paul's point, what that looks like and what we've done and what we're doing with Leavenworth County as an example. Finalized a partnership with them about a year and a half ago now, and they've ordered vehicles to go through their first cycle of
They haven't
trucks.
received them yet.
Yeah, they've received trucks. They haven't received their second round to replace the first ones. But I can tell you on the Missouri side, well, here specifically, Goddard Public Schools, several weeks back, we cycled out a lot of their first round of orders. We gave them $10,000 back on average per truck, and they had paid us $6,500 per truck for that year. So not only did we give them a brand new truck, they made $3,500 per truck. Now, I'm not saying that's gonna be the case forever. We're
Right.
certainly in a bubble, but even if I said, hey, Paul, hey, Taylor, it's gonna cost you $2,000 a year, but I'll give you a brand new truck and you have little to no maintenance ever, brand new trucks, more fuel efficient, how does that sound?
And the lease payment covers oil changes, brakes, whatever.
Yeah.
Routine maintenance. All right.
What about accidents?
We just get added to your current certificate of insurance, so that just transfers over. We're an additional insured.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
This is definitely beneficial for the city, but how does this benefit enterprise?
That's a great question. So, I love answering that question because we're very transparent about this. We make a little bit of money on a lot of vehicles. So we have corporate visits today and tomorrow, and our executive vice president, we just, actually, this isn't even news yet, but we just passed as the largest fleet management company in the United States. And we've got.
So they're the Amazon of fleet
So,
management,
yeah, so we,
economies of scale.
Beneficial, that's good.
yeah, it just became official, sorry guys. 530,000 vehicles on lease currently, and today during our meeting, he was discussing 1 million vehicles and how that's the next goal and how he thinks we'll get there in 5 years. So,
That's cool.
but we make a little bit of money on a lot of vehicles. And,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, our goal is to get a larger portion of your fleet, and there's not necessarily a long-term commitment. So you're not required to order a certain percentage of your fleet through us. We don't say, hey, you're locked in a 5-year agreement or a 10-year agreement, because we believe that will provide value to our clients. And if we don't, then you stop ordering vehicles from us and you go back to doing what you were doing. So if it doesn't work, then
Yeah.
fire us.
That makes
Sorry,
sense.
again, don't.
That's good.
But we believe in the value that we bring, and I've seen it, and it's working. And, I mean, if you talk to Lenexa and Shawnee County, those are two of our oldest clients, Olathe Public Schools as well. They've seen tremendous value in cost savings, and dollars free back up into their budget to do other things with, instead of tied up into vehicle purchases.
Yep, appreciate it.
Can people, not people, but organizations, I don't want to say game the system, but kind of game the system. Let's say we start this, we order 10 F-250 trucks in your example, and you say, I'll have them to you January 1st, you know, approximately.
Sure.
Can we say on December 1st, before we even get those, we're going to turn these in the following October, we think we'll have our 10,000 miles on them. So place another order, another 10. and we're just gonna start moving these, if you're gonna give me $6,000 a copy, or if we know that the bubble is still there, can we play that? Can we game it?
That's exactly what we do. So and that's why we meet with you 3 times a year, and by providing you a client strategy manager who's meeting with Taylor, Paul, or whomever it may be, we're advising on what's happening. So I mean, if you can sell your house right now, you would do it if you had another place you could move into because of what the market is doing. Same with vehicles. And so we're advising our clients, order vehicles, because what we're seeing in the market is this isn't slowing down anytime soon. So let's maximize those revenues. Flip side of that coin, you know, when COVID first hit, we were advising our clients because the resale market absolutely dropped like a rock. And so we were saying, hey, whoa, no, hold on to these vehicles. Let's wait for the market to rebound. And then it skyrocketed, and it's been there since. And it's going to continue to be there because of the inventory is so low, and it's going to take production several years to get back to normal. So there's a service requirement. You got to leave them in service for at least a year, 12 months. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, we're very proactive because we just ordered Leavenworth County's this model year and the next model year. So we come up with a fleet replacement schedule. And so we ordered the 22 replacements and the 23 replacements now to be able to maximize that equity and get these vehicles turning and burning for them. Great question.
Well, the public works people will love it, because usually somebody's assigned a truck that's got 220,000 miles on it.
No,
Four
we don't
different
do that.
four different size tires.
We have good vehicles.
Yeah. But one of the questions I get a lot, kind of to that point, is, hey, you know, these are work trucks. These are going to get beat up. Well, sure, that's because you're driving it for 20 years. And it's going to require a lot more damage and wear and tear, that kind of thing, versus you having it for a year or 2. And so it's just going to acquire less damage in that time. Sure, things are going to come back with dent, sting, scratches. We've got plenty of government entities that are using them for the exact same purpose across country. So very normal.
Okay.
For Commissioner Griswold, we did ask, and it is a possibility to look at some electric cars, maybe for some code enforcement or something like that. So they do have relationships. We've checked this, you know, they'll tell you, hey, Tahoe's the best for your resale, but you can have different options. I mean, you don't have to stick with, they have some options. So we did ask that question because I know we were talking about that, so.
You had, was it DeSoto that ordered the F-150 Lightning?
Yeah, so I just,
really?
yeah, with the frunk, as they call it, the front trunk. I didn't even know that was a thing until I looked it up. Yeah, Mike Brunkard over there.
Oh, so raise the hood, it's a trunk.
It's a trunk, yeah, in the front. Yeah, pretty interesting. But
There's
yeah,
gonna be a big engine there.
they're going to order. So it's not available for order yet, but we registered for them. So once the order banks open for the F-150 Lightning, the electric vehicle, they're going to acquire one of those. So that'll be the first for their city. So kind of
Cool,
unique
very
there.
cool. All right. Anybody else, any questions or?
How long has your company had this program? I mean,
1957. So, but we don't, so in our fleet management division, we don't do any advertising. So we started out as a long-term leasing company. We don't do any advertising, and so it's been grassroots, word of mouth, very organic growth. And, you know, once you start to get in working with different municipalities, it kind of spreads organically. But yeah, we've really started to grow about 3-ish years ago once we started to do a lot more police vehicles. So, yeah, pretty tremendous growth.
Great.
Okay.
Anything else? No. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good,
Thank you for coming.
good information. All right. That completes our agenda. Mr. Kramer, did you have anything this evening?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Pricing?
All right, have nothing.
Commissioner Griswold?
Yeah, over the last year and a half, I mean, in 2020, I was the mayor, so I would, with COVID going on, I'd frequently review the metrics. And, you know, in recent months, everything's been pretty positive, but things are starting to take a turn for the worse. And I just put this information out there just so our citizens will know. But yesterday, the county health department released their weekly report, and there were 107 new positive community cases. 14 vaccinated individuals, 93 unvaccinated. So that's an 87% in terms of the people who have contracted the disease or unvaccinated. And then 86% of the new cases are people under 55. So it isn't, you know, in 2020, a lot of it were older people in terms of really getting very sick or unfortunately dying, but the average age of the patients now who are tested positive for COVID is certainly decreasing. So I put that information out. And the other thing that's concerning is that in the last month, the positivity rate for COVID tests has gone from about 1.36% up to 9.93%. That's a 630% increase. So that's concerning, and I just put that information out there and encourage everyone who's not vaccinated to get vaccinated. I get concerned when I see our citizens, that many citizens being sick, and the potential to get other people sick, but mainly just people getting sick. And
Right.
it's not a good situation, and things have reversed really, I think, in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So that's all I have.
And I'm concerned about the children too, getting ready to go back to school. Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, sort of backing on Commissioner Griswold, well, the Leavenworth County Health Department, this Thursday, July 22nd, from 9 to 4, is gonna give vaccinations out. They're gonna do the Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer, and the Pfizer is 12 and older. If anyone's interested, you just walk on in, 9 to 4 this Thursday.
At the County Health Department,
Yep,
out on Eisenhower.
that's all I have.
Commissioner,
No, ma'am.
you don't have anything this evening? Glad you're here.
Yep, good to be here.
Great. If nothing else, then we are adjourned.
No, I'm glad when he said that.